Hello, it's John Heaton. Let's move a bit closer. I thought I'd reviewed all of the Beatles solo album releases, but turns out I'd left out this one. So rather than do any more 80s or more recent stuff, I thought I'd complete the circle, as it were, by doing this album, Ringo the Fourth, released in September 1977, and the follow-up to Ringo's Graveur. Just before I go talk about the album, just want to show you this book. I think Joe showed a copy of this on one of his videos, but I don't know, did he? I'm not sure if I think his was signed as well. So this is a limited edition, signed by Nancy Andrews, who was Ringo's girlfriend from 73-ish, 4-ish through to 1980, when he got together with Barbara Bach. And this is a very interesting book, and you open the front cover and she's got the front cover of Ringo the Fourth together with some outtakes from the cover sessions, and also more outtakes on the back. So Nancy did the cover for that album. She also did the cover for Bad Boy, which is in here as well somewhere. And there's also some great pictures, such as this one of Paul, Linda, Ringo and Nancy walking down Fifth Avenue in New York, mid-70s. Great picture. And so Nancy was with Ringo throughout the mid to late 70s, so she's got some great pictures. There's George Harrison, Klaus Bormann featured here, and on the front you've got Eric Clapton, Keith Moon, and George and Ringo, Mickey Dolenz, and there's some other ones with George somewhere here. So it's a really nice book. Just trying to find the George ones. There's one of George here. Quite rare photographs. I haven't seen quite a few of them, so I didn't even know this book existed until you pointed it out, Joe, so thanks for that. So I bought it on Amazon recently and glad to have it. This is what Nancy looks like today and back then. So, to the album. And the cover of Bad Boy is also in there, I just couldn't find it. So, a good little thing you can do with this album is you can do a little Beatles quiz. Can you name all of the musicians who played on this album who also played with another solo Beatle? And if you want a few seconds to think about it, you could pause the video now. Otherwise, I'll just go ahead and tell you. So David Spinoza is on lead guitar in a few tracks. He had played on Ram, McCartney's album from 71, and also on Mind Games, John's album from 73. We've got Tony Levine on bass, who later played on Double Fantasy, of course. We've got David Foster on keyboards, who was on Extra Texture and 33 1/3 of George's. We've got Steve Gadd, who plays drums on a few tracks and was on Tug of War and Pipes of Peace. I think that's all. Yeah, I think that's all. Obviously Vinnie Poncia is featured heavily on this album and was also on the previous 3 albums heavily as well. So Ringo actually writes quite a bit of the material on this album with Vinnie Poncia, and some of the efforts are quite credible, really. So, and this is a nice picture of him and Vinnie. Yeah, Vinnie and me. Great picture, I love it. So this album is not the best loved of Ringo's career, and it's not the best by any means, but it's, in my opinion, quite a bit more enjoyable than most or many of the albums post Vertical Man. I'd say after Vertical Man the quality started dipping. It's not as good as Time Takes Time. It's not as good as Bad Boy. It's not as good as Graveur, but it has its moments, folks. It's produced by Arif Mardin. Pictures of Ringo and Arif in the book as well, and quite an amusing cover, but Ringo looks a little bit tired or out of it a little bit, maybe. In the outtakes he does anyway. Carr and Tyler actually absolutely laid into this album, dismissed it, particularly dismissed the single "Drowning in the Sea of Love," which is harmless enough. Ringo tries his best to sing it. It's not the easiest song to sing, a bit heavy on the female backing vocals perhaps, but there's a nice video that Ringo did for it. He was shooting quite a few videos in the 70s, and then less so after Stop and Smell the Roses. I don't think he hardly shot any, but for this album he did a video for that single. For the previous album, Rotogravure, he'd recorded at least 2 videos that I can think of, and Goodnight Vienna, there's at least 1 I can think of, Only You. So the opening track, yeah, it's not bad. It's not as terrible as Carr and Tyler make out, but nothing great. And then Tango All Night. Yes, you know, Ringo's pretty good at choosing which songs to cover, but on this album he kind of doesn't choose the best songs on the whole to suit his style. So this Tango All Night is a bit generic and a bit, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not very special. Wings is, I'm pretty sure that's the first co-written track. Yeah, Starkey Poncia. And this song Wings features, by the way, nothing to do with Paul McCartney's group Wings, although who knows whether he called it that or wrote the song the same name for that reason. I'm not sure, but the lyrics don't suggest anything like that. Good electric guitar. I was trying to look for who plays it, but it doesn't specify who plays what on each track. So Ringo revisited this song on his 2012 album. Some people prefer that remake. I think this original is perfectly decent. I like the electric guitar. And then Gave It All Up is a beautiful song about his childhood and back to his school days, riding his bike with his friend and stealing sweets from the local shop and stuff, and then gave it all up for school, and then leaving school and giving it all up for love. And it's a really moving track, and I know Ringo has a little problems pitching the vocal, but I find it very rewarding track, and some friends of mine who are not particularly Ringo fans quite like this track as well. So another Starkey Poncia. There's 6 Starkey Poncia songs on this album. Out on the Streets is a kind of up-tempo one, bit too disco-y. Starkey Poncia again. Probably the most interesting thing about this song is his mention of going to the Dakota to meet John and Yoko, and then he talks about being attacked by some people with some knives and making a joke about, I don't mind as long as there's something on the end of it, which I think is referring to cocaine, because Ringo was pretty much at the height of his partying time, should we say, during the making of this album, and hence you probably won't hear him discuss any of the albums of this period in any interviews. He kind of disowns the whole period, although some good music came out of it. It's a little bit unfortunate, but that's the way it is. Can She Do It Like She Dances is quite an amusing track, but doesn't really bear too many repeated listens. It's okay, but Ringo's done more humorous tracks, like Oh My My from the Ringo album was a little bit similar, but a lot more effective and amusing, I think. It's not terrible. Seeking Sally Through the Alley is written by Alan Toussaint, who also wrote a cappella from the Goodnight Vienna album, and this one is a bit of an anonymous song, handled okay by Ringo, arrangement nothing special, you know. I think Carr and Tyler would have said something like perfect musicianship, but so it is on most albums these latter days. Some cynical remark like that. It's well played, but it doesn't really do anything energy-wise. And then the album finishes with 3 Starkey Poncia songs, and I think all 3 of them are quite charming. It's No Secret is a really nice ballad with a nice melody, nicely sung in a nice register for Ringo to sing. Gypsies in Flight, same thing really, slower song with a nice melody. And then Simple Love Song, a really upbeat song to close the album, and probably the catchiest song on the album, and a really good composition by Ringo and Vinnie. So album finishes strongly. David Foster's playing piano on that last track. Arif Mardin was producing, who produced Rotogravure. They parted company after this album, and actually Ringo released Bad Boy just about 7-8 months after this, in April '78. So obviously chart-wise Ringo was up against punk and all the rest of it, so it didn't really do anything, but who cares? I still listen to this album quite a bit. Thank you for watching. See you next time.